So I started riding when I was 4 or 5 years old. I just enjoyed it so much. And it was just a release for me. It was like where I really found my excitement in life. It just became a passion. I started racing motocross and became a stunt rider in my 20s. We all worship something. Some people worship God. I think I worshiped motorcycles, honestly, because that was really the main thing in my life. Even though I grew up in a Christian home, had a Bible, knew Bible verses, prayed, I lived as if God didn't have any real impact on my life. I just started hanging around, a really bad crowd, and we just partied together and we got into a lot of shady stuff. I started drinking and we started trying different drugs, partying and stealing things. I would run from the cops. I remember just vandalizing and doing all kinds of things that I regret. Before I knew it, I was traveling all over the country to go to competitions and do stunt shows. I started picking up a bunch of sponsorships, and it was like this dream come true because I always loved to ride. My ego just kept getting bigger. I ended up going on a road trip with a friend who was an atheist. We were in the car so long together that we began to talk about whether or not God existed. We had just really different worldviews. What really it came down to was, he said, why should I believe what you believe when you're no different than me? You don't live any differently. It obviously doesn't affect your life. When he told me that, it's like God spoke to my heart and said, you're living this double life where you think you're pleasing me on Sunday, but you're living for yourself the rest of the week. For me, stunt riding and living for myself was more important than living for God, and it really took someone to point that out to me, that I had this double standard in my life. And from that trip, when I got home, something changed. Like, I really wanted to know if what I believed was even true. So I got a book that basically compared the religions of the world. I began to see, the more I looked into it, how God's fingerprint was in the world, how he had really woven the world together, where I saw how great God is, how incredibly brilliant he has made everything. My heart just began to throb to know him more. So I picked up a Bible and I started to read from Genesis. As I read through it, I began to see not only God's greatness, it just all started to make more sense to me, but also began to see my sinfulness and how I was like this child that had disobeyed its parent. Like I'm a rebel, and all of mankind, because of sin, because we rejected God, we rebelled and turned our backs on him. We all inherited the sin from our first father, Adam. Because of that, the world's cursed, and there's all these problems, everything from war to sickness and poverty. We deserve to be separated from him for eternity. And yet Jesus came to earth and lived this perfect life. He went to the cross. He died in our place, that he became our substitute. Everything that I was reading in the Bible, I just saw all these prophecies that were told before Jesus came. And then when he came, he fulfilled those prophecies. When Jesus went to the cross, he took the punishment that I deserved, that we all deserve for rebelling against God. All this time, I thought I was saved, and yet I just had been living in sin. When I realized that I was not truly born again, I just came to this place of just brokenness, and I finally surrendered to him. Just one night in my apartment, I just got on my knees and I just cried out to God for forgiveness. And I told him that I really wanted to live for him. In that moment of surrender and brokenness, I experienced just this fatherly love just like wash over me. It was like I got a fresh start. God did a work in my heart and he changed me. I just experienced like over the past several years, God do this regenerating work in my life where He's transforming me. Because of what Jesus has done on the cross, that we can be reconciled to God, adopted into His family as His children because of what Jesus has done, and only through what Jesus has done.